Hello everyone, God of Ka here, and welcome to my first commentary in a series I will be calling Commentaries of Ka. Before I begin, here is a little bit of background that inspired me to make this. I was introduced to commentaries via Just a Robot and Manga Common. I've seen the ups and downs, finally experienced something I did not expect. MatPat from Game Theory could be wrong. I saw his infamous Persona 4 theory and seen a Let's Play of that same game, so I knew this theory was bunk. But wanting to make sure, I went to see if anyone else made a commentary on the same video. I was surprised I wasn't the only person who knew this theory was wrong, but also learned a lot more about the theory's origin and the process Game Theory went through in making the video of said theory. This was before I made my channel for all you mortals out there. Gradually, I wanted to make a commentary, but didn't know where to start. This took a long time and a lot of thinking, but I finally found it. And not surprising anyone, it's a Game Theory video. This is Game Theory. I lost every game of Magic, so you don't have to. I knew I wanted to cover something from him, as it seems like a metaphorical rite of passage to cover one of his videos. Some are either too old or I have no interest in. This is the only one where I have somewhat of an interest in, and I even know a few people IRL who pointed out some issues with it. So, all that I'll be saying here won't be coming from me alone. And before we begin, please subscribe and ring the notification bell if you like any of my content. And if you like my commentary, please inform me of any video you want me to cover in the comments below. Now, without further ado, roll the theory, Elizabeth.
'Today's episode is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast.
I'm getting a bad feeling from this alone. Sponsorships aren't bad, but as we will see further on, he's probably only doing this for the money the sponsorship is giving him.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory, the show that goes through calculators faster than a Magic tournament grinder goes through card sleeves. First, let's talk about that cold open, shall we? It seems weird what I just kind of presented you with, right? That something as mundane as a deck of cards would be able to produce something that is entirely unique, but consider this. Whenever you shuffle a 52 card deck, the number of possible combinations for that deck is over 80 million trillion trillion, 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 and then take that number and multiply it by another trillion.
But what does this have to do with Magic Arena?
So today's episode is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and their new online card game Magic Arena, which is great because it gives me a chance to redeem myself when it comes to online card games. You see, I'm kinda new to this world, and truth be told, I am not very good. Damn it, he blocked it.
What? No!
I hate effing card games.
Come on.
This sucks. Damn it.
Dude.
Damn it, and it reflected.
No!
I hate everything. I hate card games. Reflected!
Oh, God!
I told you!
It's the worst.
I hate it. I hate everything. I'm done.
This is why I don't think you did this for the passion of cards games. You were asked by Wizards of the Coast to do a video on Magic Arena. You accepted the offer, but had to do a theory on their game. While you are not only terrible at online cards games, but hate them as you've proven with your GT Live clip. I am really curious to see how you work with this.
Not sure if Wizards knew about this when they contacted me about the episode, but in concept, I should be good at this game, right? Magic is a card game. It all boils down to math and statistics. So today, I wanted to figure out a way to outsmart the game of Magic. I want to dedicate a sponsored episode of this, Game Theory, to just make me a better player.
There is also luck that comes into play as well, especially with an online platform such as Magic Arena. You don't actually see the other person and find out what strategy they're playing before the game begins.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with Magic, the game has been around since 1993, and it currently has more than 20 million players worldwide, which means it's basically setting the standard for all trading card games to follow. Each player starts off with 20 life points and a deck of at least 60 cards. Unless, of course, you're playing Draft, or Sealed, or Commander, or etc., etc. There's a lot of different ways to play this game. You win, very simply, by getting your opponent's life down to 0 via various summons, like zombies and dragons and bears, oh my! Or, my personal favorite method, by milling them out, which means getting them to draw their last card.
Boy, you must be a real snack if you prefer to do mill. Unless you would draw into your key cards, you will be taking a lot of losses. Maybe that's why you keep on losing, as the title of the video says, and as you showed earlier.
So if we're gonna use scientific reasoning to become a master of the cards, we need to break this game down to its purest fundamentals. Magic is what's known as an imperfect game. Now, I don't mean that this game sucks. I mean, first off, it doesn't, but even if I did mean it that way, there is no way that the brand would ever let this episode see the light of day if that's what I really meant.
And the definition you give and examples of the opposites are really gonna bite you in the butt. It wouldn't be a sponsored video if the host wasn't kissing up to the brand.
No, by imperfect, I mean that Magic is a game where you, as the player, only have partial information. Consider as your counterexample chess or checkers. You see all of your pieces as well as all of your opponent's pieces and know how all of those pieces can move at any given point in time. They are perfect games. You are working with perfect knowledge. Everything that can be known is known by both players all the time. Your ability to win chess or checkers or any other perfect game comes down to you using your knowledge more effectively than your opponent.
That effective use of the rules is still a wild card factor in those games you called perfect games. You don't know what your opponent will do with those pieces, and vice versa.
But games like Magic are all about imperfect knowledge. Sure, you know what's in your hand and what you have in your deck, but the order your deck is shuffled in? No clue. What your opponent has in his hand or in his deck? Unclear. Your ability to win in Magic really depends on two things: a combination of strategy against your opponent and chance against the odds.
And the chance your opponent won't make a certain move that will lead to your downfall, like in the chess example you graciously provided.
So, how do we use math then to better our odds of winning? Well, let's start with overcoming that first variable of chance. Not everyone can possess the soul of an ancient pharaoh and tap into the heart of the cards, which allows them to get exactly the card that they need right when they need it.
I would like to make an example where luck is a factor, but Spoon Slayer did it better in their video on Mother's Basement's video on how cards games make bad anime. Link to that video will be in the description.
For a real-world example, let's look at the deck that won one of the biggest Magic tournaments recently, Mythic Championship 3 in Las Vegas, where nearly $1 million of prize money was up for grabs. There's the deck. Now, you may look at this list and not recognize any of these cards, but one thing that you'll immediately notice is that there's a lot of redundancy here in this deck, with practically every card having at least one, and sometimes up to 3 other duplicates in that deck of 60.
Thank your editor, because they caught you in their safety net. You said 1 to 3 copies while they pulled out 2 to 4 copies of respective cards. In your pot shot on Yu-Gi-Oh? Yeah, 1 to 3 copies makes sense. But this is Magic. Clearly you didn't play the game, but your editor knows enough about the meta to know better.
And for players who are more experienced in Magic, you'll notice that even the cards that are one-offs actually seem to function similarly to other cards that are already in the deck. Cynic Guildgate, for instance, is just there to serve as an additional, though slightly weaker, extra blue-green mana source, because he is already maxed out on Breeding Pool and Hinterland Harbor.
I would counter that Breeding Pool is weaker than the 2 other cards, because you have to pay 2 life to keep it untapped when you play it. Like you said, both players have 20 life points earlier in your video. That is a valuable resource. And Breeding Pool doesn't even search out a land for you. Although the deck's holder did win with this deck, so there's more to that than either of us can understand.
Blink of an eye, Callous Dismissal, also one-offs, but do very similar things for the deck.
This isn't it, but I will point it out. Blink of an eye is outright better, because if it was kicked, which in this case means you paid 2 of any mana and 2 blue mana for its cost, you make it so that using it is a +1 instead of a -0 in card advantage.
If your 60 card deck of Magic has all unique cards, that's 8.3 times 10 to the 81st possible deck orders. That is a huge number. But with all the duplicates that you see in this championship-winning deck, its creator, Matthias Leverato, has knocked that down to 8.1 times 10 to the 63rd possible permutations. Now, that is still a massively huge number, right? Sure, it is, but the percent change from this first number to this new one is actually him reducing variability by almost 100%. He reduced the effects of chance on his deck by nearly 100% simply by duplicating a good number of the cards.
You also had to take into account the meta at that time. Based on what we see alone, it was a very heavy green-blue meta. The Simic Guild holds the positives of green and blue. And here is where they cover all of the IRL interactions which do not matter in an online platform. Skipping time.
A lot of decisions go into playing a single hand of Magic, and if you're paying attention, you can actually start to see how your opponent reacts in certain situations, which ends up giving you a lot more free information. First and foremost, pay attention to the speed at which your opponent plays. If your opponent is just speeding through their turn playing drop after drop, but then suddenly pauses for a long time on their turn before playing nothing, it seems like a good chance that they might be holding something in their hand for your next turn.
Or they're thinking for a moment instead of going through the motions because of what you have on the board.
Typically, if people have multiple options, they're gonna take a little bit longer to figure out what their optimal strategy is. Secondly, pay attention to the lands that they're tapping, or actively not tapping. If your opponent consistently leaves the same 3 lands untapped, 1 island and 2 randoms, they're probably telegraphing a certain card, or just bluffing about it. But either way, it's something to take note of.
Or they don't have the right cards in their hand at the moment. That is an option, but that's where I'll be ending it because he tends to not go over 20 minutes. So I think it's time for my final thoughts. Surprisingly, this wasn't as bad as I originally thought, but because of the limit he's putting himself at, he can't elaborate further on things. For a video sponsored by Wizards of the Coast for their online game, Magic Arena, you only covered a small amount of the video for that game. That is deceptive. And I hear you don't actually play the games you cover theories on. I don't at all like that. This is another case where you probably didn't play that game for this video you're getting paid to make. If I get another video from you, MatPat, and that is also sponsored, expect this kind of criticism from not only me, but everyone else. With that out of the way, what do you all think? Was I too harsh on MatPat? Should I cover another MatPat video? What video do you want me to cover? Be it a MatPat video or not. Let me know in the comments below. I plan on making commentaries, but if I do make a commentary on a video someone recommends, I will shout them out. Now, without further delay, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell if you like this video and my content overall. See you all real soon.